instead of saying something in a boring way, you could be like, how do I say this in a more fun, bubbly way? Or how do I say this using a pop culture reference? How would Taylor Swift say this? You can ask it things like that. And so that's a fun way that like on a smaller level, it can help you with your copy, but it isn't completely writing the whole thing for you. Or you can have it write the whole thing for you. Hey, my human friend, and welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Kinsey, and I am stoked to be in your earbuds today because I have a treat for you. Earlier this month, I was invited to be on the #managed podcast with Jessica Sheehy, and the conversation was so dang good. I asked her if I could reshare it on this show as well, and she graciously agreed. Jess and I chatted about how you can integrate AI into your content creation process, how to use Chat GPT to get into the head of your ideal customers or your clients' ideal customers, how to brainstorm different ways to say things and use pop culture references in your AI-generated copy, and lots more. I know this is a conversation that you're going to love, so if you do, I'd love for you to firstly leave us 5 stars or a friendly review because that really does help us to spread our AI message and grow our AI community. And also send me a message on Instagram letting me know that you enjoyed the show. I am at FeelGoodSocial or at Authentic AI for Entrepreneurs. Either one of those, you can reach me. I would love to hear from you, and I will be sure to give you a follow back and just keep cheering you on over there. Okay, without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right in. Hey friend, and welcome to the Feel Good Social Podcast. I'm your host, Kinsey, and I'm here to help you market your business in a genuine way that works without wasting your precious time. On this show, we chat about social media strategy and mindset tips with a focus on, you guessed it, feeling good. So sit back, relax, and enjoy some genuine conversation for the good of your biz. Have you been feeling frustrated trying to get ChatGPT to sound like you? You know this is an awesome tool you can use for so many things in your business, but you're tired of wasting time going back and forth only to end up with generic copy that sounds like a robot wrote it. Our new brand persona for ChatGPT mini course will help you hone your brand's unique voice with the help of ChatGPT, so you can get ChatGPT to dish up content ideas that are perfect for your brand and write copy that sounds just like you. With this quick, easy, and actionable mini course, we'll walk you through the process of training ChatGPT for your brand. So in less than an hour, you can turn ChatGPT into your amazing new assistant, content creator, copywriter, brainstormer at a minuscule fraction of the cost. So why wait? Sign up for our brand persona for ChatGPT mini course right now at feelgoodsocial.com/mini course. And in less than an hour, we'll get your ChatGPT to sound just like your brand and work authentically for your business.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of #managed. I'm really excited to introduce today's guest to all of you. And I'm also so excited for our conversation because we're going to dive into probably the biggest buzzword in the digital marketing space right now. We're chatting all things AI. So I want you all to meet Kinsey, the founder and host of the Feel Good Social and Authentic AI podcasts. She helps down-to-earth entrepreneurs show up authentically online and build a brand that works for you without losing your mind, wasting your time, or selling your soul. Kinsey, welcome to the #managed podcast. Tell me a little bit more about you and why you started your business.
Yes, thank you so much for bringing me on your show, Jessica. I'm so excited to geek out about AI with you because it's just so much fun to talk about and so interesting these days. But just to introduce me a little bit further, like you said, I am the host of both the Feel Good Social podcast and our brand new podcast, Authentic AI for Entrepreneurs. Super stoked to just dive into that world even farther. But I started my business, like 5-ish years ago now, 6-ish years ago now, depending on like when the official start date is, right? Because I feel like we all start freelancing and start diving into the world of entrepreneurship before we're ready to claim I am an entrepreneur and actually start our business. So that was me. A little backstory, like way back, how it all started is my now husband and I actually took a 6-month trip through Asia, and I had the awesome idea to start like a travel blog. I was like, we're going to be like rock climbing influencers. I started an Instagram for that. And like, spoiler alert, the blog lasted about a month. The Instagram account, I was posting on it, but it did not really go anywhere. Let's be honest, because I felt like that was the first time I really had that realization that, okay, Instagram takes work. If you want to show up and market yourself. And I was over just enjoying myself in Asia. I was like, this is taking up too much of my time. It's distracting me from my travels. I better just like drop it for now. But fast forward to us getting back to the States, we moved to the Vail Valley in Colorado, and I got a job at a restaurant to make some quick cash and get all of that money back that I spent in Asia. And I was telling the owner about our travels and the Instagram account I started. And she was like, oh, you know how to do blogging. You know how to do Instagram. You should do that for us. And that was just my first start of dabbling my toes into using social media to market your business, blogging, the online marketing world, all that stuff. And slowly that snowballed into me creating my business, Feel Good Social. And it took a while for me, for sure, to find my authentic angle of how I want to show up online and how I want to talk about marketing and help other down-to-earth entrepreneurs and all that stuff. I definitely went through that whole journey of, oh, I'm supposed to be showing up in this way, right? I'm supposed to be talking about things like this. I'm supposed to be looking professional all the time and acting like I'm knowing what I'm doing. And there was just a lot of rub there for me. And I really my skin crawls so much when I feel like I'm trying to be someone all the time. It's exhausting for me. I can't show up in a way that doesn't feel aligned, or else like something's wrong somewhere else. And so I ended up just finally figuring out that big kind of lesson of, okay, Kins, if you want to see success online, what you really have to do is just show up as your dang self, lean into who you are, talk about things in the way that you want to talk about them, and help other people who are just like you, who aren't necessarily relating to some of the other people who are doing it in their way, in like a different way, right? And so that's the backbone of my business with Feel Good Social and now Authentic AI for Entrepreneurs, right? It's just that angle of approaching the entrepreneurship world, approaching online marketing and branding in a way that feels true and authentic and good to you, that works for you and aligns with your values and all that jazz, and not having to follow all the shoulds that you hear online. And so when it comes to AI, we are trying to figure out how the heck we're supposed to use AI authentically too. And I will keep you posted. We'll talk about it today, and I'm sure it's going to be an ever-evolving journey for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I had no idea about the 6 months traveling abroad in Asia. That is so cool. I'm a Sagittarius, so anytime I hear anything travel or have any opportunity myself to leave the nest and go explore new cultures, new places, I'm absolutely obsessed with it. So that is really cool. But I love that that was your introduction to the online marketing world and social media, and how that really started opening the doors for you. But that still was the time where you were still trying to learn and develop like who you were and how to authentically show up as yourself, which I absolutely love that pillar of your brand, which I think is so important for anyone who is marketing online. I think definitely for people who are personal brands, it's really important to lean into that authenticity of what makes you unique and what secret sauce do you have to the work that you do and all of that. So I think that's really, really cool. I'd love to talk. I know it's really new and it's obviously the topic of today's conversation. I'd love to talk about your pivot into AI. And I guess, when was the first time that you started learning about AI and really wanted to make that pivot to start the new podcast?
Oh yeah, Jessica, it was definitely a pivot for sure too. And I like to share this story because I think that there's definitely like two camps of entrepreneurs that, well, actually more than that, probably more like three camps of entrepreneurs when it comes to AI technology. There's the people who are like, oh, wow, this is awesome, and just immediately embrace it. There's the people who are like, oh, that's cool, but like, I don't really have time to like learn something new, or like it feels overwhelming, so they're slow to approach it. And then there's the people like me who we're total curmudgeons about it. Like that was my first kind of it took a while for me to definitely like turn toward AI and embrace it, because I think when I first started hearing about it, it was back in January, the beginning of this year. I started just hearing whispers about, oh wait, you haven't been using Chat GPT? Like it can help you do this, it can help you do that. Or like other AI technologies such as like the video editing stuff slowly starting to integrate its way into things and stuff. But especially when it came to the Chat GPT, like my initial reaction jumped to, oh no, like, is this just one way that our creativity as humans is going to be like hindered, right? I have this whole thing with Google in the back of my mind. Like I freaking love Google. I'm definitely a Googler for sure every day. However, I also like have this weird fear of like the kids who are growing up these days with all this information at their fingertips all the time. Like, will they not be able to like retain any new information and all that different stuff? So when it came to the AI stuff, my biggest like concern immediately was like, is this going to stop us from thinking critically and thinking creatively as humans because we can now have like software to do it for us? And like there was this concern when it came to that. And of course, there's the other big fears, such as, are robots going to take over the world? Such as like the ethics and the plagiarism side of it. And just all these different things. Is AI going to turn us all into just mindless sheep and like make us all sound even more the same and show up more the same online as we already are? Because I feel like that's already an issue a lot of times in a lot of industries. So I definitely a curmudgeon. Let's just stick with that. And then I was driving on a 2-hour drive in the car. I was like listening to a podcast and I heard someone talking about Chat GPT. And I also then listened to a second podcast about dealing with your fears or something. And I had this big epiphany moment where I was like, oh, I'm just being a curmudgeon about this because I'm afraid of all of these things, but it's not anything that I can control. It's happening no matter what. And so the best thing I can do is turn toward AI, turn toward ChatGPT, start dipping my toes into it, start learning more about it, embracing it, and figuring out how I can use it in a way that aligns with my own values and feels authentic to me, so that that's how I can use it. And hopefully I can share that with other people and they can use AI authentically for themselves as well. And I also have realized too, through learning about AI technology, more so listening to other podcasts about it and all of that stuff, that has really helped me to learn more about it, open my eyes to it, but also hone my own opinions about it and move forward in the conversation of AI technology so that hopefully we can shape an AI future that does feel good to us and that does align with us, versus just being scared of it and like hoping the world doesn't go to crap.
Yeah, absolutely. I love your perspective on AI. I feel like that is really refreshing. And I feel like, honestly, a lot of people are probably in the similar boat with how they've heard about AI for the first time or how they're really perceiving it, and just honestly being skeptical about how to integrate it into their current workflows in their business and whatnot. So I've really loved, of course, learning from anyone and everyone in the business and marketing space around AI, but I am geeking out over how other industries are using AI. It's really fascinating to me to see how they are easily integrating it into how people in like the health and wellness industry are integrating ChatGPT into the work that they're doing and the clients they're serving and even the content they're creating. So I feel like that is such a really cool thing. And I'm really interested to see the future of AI and how it really goes. But I'm also excited to be a part of the AI movement. And I think it plays into, how we have so much technology at tip of our hands. It's right in our phones and on our computers and everywhere we look. And I think that's what makes online business so great in 2023. And I feel like there's just going to be more and more improvements to AI, the tools that use AI that start integrating it more like into their tools and whatnot. So I'd love to talk about AI with content creation, because you mentioned a few points about there's the fear of, do we all sound the same? There's also, of course, the ethics to AI and plagiarism and all of that. But Kinsey, I would love to hear from your perspective, how can we integrate AI and specifically Chat GPT into our content creation process?
Oh, yeah. I love this question. And this is where I'm going to start getting super nerdy. So watch out, friends. My hands are probably going to start waving around. But yeah, okay. So how can we start incorporating AI into our content creation process? The first thing I think we should talk about is that AI can feel a little bit overwhelming when you first start like start using it, having your eyes open to it. And then you realize, oh, wow, this can do a lot. And there's lots of different options for AI technology out there. There's lots of different ways that you can integrate it into your. And so I think that the first thing we should talk about is it doesn't have to be all at once, right? When you start using AI technology in your content creation process, it's definitely just like start dabbling your toes in there a little bit, start getting curious, but don't put pressure on yourself to, oh my gosh, I have to figure this out immediately. And then also, especially if you're going into, let's like hone in on using Chat GPT for content creation and whatnot, definitely have some sort of organization system like ready to go. It doesn't have to be a perfect organization system. You'll probably figure out an organization system like as you start using it and or figure out how you can incorporate it into your current system that you're using. But definitely at least have a Google Doc open next in the window next to Chat GPT or something like that, because it is going to be spitting out so many results at you. And you can, it's definitely that like, I feel like this happens to us without the use of Chat GPT. Sometimes when we start brainstorming content ideas, we're like, oh, but this and this and this and this and this, like, and then you have 10 ideas and you're like, I don't know which to choose. Like, where do I start? And then with Chat GPT, it's that like tenfold. And so always have like a Google Doc or something open that you can brain dump anything that you think might be helpful for future reference or you might need for future reference, so that you can like release that anxiety feeling that comes with feeling like you're going to forget something or like there's too much stuff, right? So that's like the best way to kind of decrease the overwhelm immediately. When it comes to using ChatGPT, just like idea generation is so great. You can have it even help you with copy. You can have it like help you brainstorm cultural references or like cute little sayings or anything like that. Instead of saying something in a boring way, right? You could be like, how do I say this in like a more fun, bubbly way? Or how do I say this like using a pop culture reference or something like that? How would Taylor Swift say this? Or is it like you can ask it things like that. And so that's a fun way that like on a smaller level, it can help you with your copy, but it isn't completely writing the whole thing for you. Or you can have it write the whole thing for you. But you know, it's never quite going to be perfect, or maybe sometimes it will spit out like quote unquote perfect captions and stuff, but you're still always going to want to go back and like check its work and read through it and make sure that it makes sense for your business or your client and it sounds like you and all of that stuff.
Oh, that was so good. And Kinsey, I was taking notes while you were talking because I love the idea of I think so many people quickly jump to AI for content. They go straight to copywriting. They're like, okay, I'm going to go into AI. I'm going to give it a prompt or two. I'm going to get all of this copy for my business. And then when they get that product, they're like, oh, that is not really on brand. That does not really make sense, or it's not fully embodying the content or message I'm wanting to share with that. But I love AI for idea lists and just idea generations and your tip on organization, because I think that's the biggest thing. It's like, what are you going to do with all of that? So if you have some sort of like system set up, no matter how you're already creating ideas for your social media, incorporate ChatGPT into that to give you even more ideas. But I love the idea of having pop culture references, because I personally feel like I'm not the greatest at pop culture references. And I love the idea of how would Taylor Swift say this? How perfect in the time that we're recording this for that. So I think that that is really awesome, actionable advice. Kinsey, I'd love to know, how can we create brand specific prompts that will generate brand specific ideas from ChatGPT? And I guess, is there a way that we can do that?
Oh, totally. Oh yeah. I know this is exactly what I've been like trying to hone how to do lately. And so this is perfect. The thing about ChatGPT is if you go in and just start asking it generic questions like, give me content ideas for marketing, it'll give you very generic responses, right? And so even asking, give me content ideas for marketing, I guess like at least you're honing in on the marketing, but we need to be getting more and more and more specific, deep diving super deep into who your brand is, what your brand values, how you help people, who are the people that you help, and telling ChatGPT all of these things before even asking it for content ideas, just because that will help you get like the most specific, unique responses for your brand that makes sense for your ideal customer. And then also niching down and getting super specific with the questions that you're asking it. So instead of saying marketing content ideas, say like, give me 3 reels ideas or short form videos ideas for specific topics, like get as specific as possible with your content that you're asking for it to generate. And then also make sure that you are telling it exactly who your brand is and who your ideal customers are. And so it can just give you those unique responses that make sense for your brand, that make sense to your ideal customer, and that aren't just, I'm trying to think of a super generic marketing advice, but you know what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that because I think that can really help you. I think I hear it all the time. I see people put posts on social media or even in our Facebook community, and they're sharing that they're just a little frustrated with the results that they're getting from their Chat GPT queries because it's very generic. But I can probably guarantee that they maybe are putting in something pretty generic. So it makes sense that they're not getting anything super specific from that. But I love the idea of sharing about the brand and the values and just the target audience too. I think that's the biggest thing, especially as if you're a business owner listening to this, you probably know your ideal avatar really, really well. And even if you're a social media marketer or some sort of digital marketing freelancer tuning into this episode as well, that really can help you use ChatGPT for the clients that you're working with, as long as you just know all of those different things. I'm curious, Kinsey, do you think there's a way that a social media marketer or digital marketing freelancer could use ChatGPT to maybe find out a little bit more about an ideal client avatar of the client they're working with? Because I feel like I've seen that a lot of questions lately in our Facebook group. One around content creation. That's the number one question. So I hope this episode about AI and content creation is really helpful for that. But so many people in our community struggle with trying to get that information from their client. And 9 times out of 10, just the client hasn't fully created that ideal client avatar or honestly gone through the proper branding process that they probably need for their business. So is there any way that maybe ChatGPT can help with that or generate some sort of ideas to help them have a better understanding of the avatar?
Totally. And this is why I love this idea too for content creators, social media managers, anyone who's working with another client and having to fully understand their client's brand and their client's ideal customer. It's like, might be a little bit easier for you who understands your own clients and all that stuff. But yeah, like having to put yourself in and understand the ideal customer's mind of your clients is so interesting. And yeah, ChatGPT can definitely help you with all this stuff. Basically, just like telling ChatGPT your client's brand, who they are, what they do, what they value, telling it what you know about their ideal customer, right? The demographics or just anything that you know about their ideal customer. And then asking it to break down different things that really might help you better understand the ideal customer and what you're trying to achieve with how you're helping them, right? So for like a social media manager, you might want to understand their pain points, their desires, internal, external pain points and desires, and really hone like that client avatar. It can totally help you brainstorm different things like that. You can brainstorm like daily life moments that might be relatable to this ideal customer. You could brainstorm what are some of their main interests. What are they the most worried about or interested in or concerned about when it comes to a certain topic? You could ask, like, what are some pop culture references that these people might understand? Really hone in on that sort of stuff. Or what are some bands that they might like? Where might they shop? You can ask ChatGPT all of these different things. Always remember that ChatGPT doesn't necessarily, it's not always correct. It's not always right for your client, your brand, their ideal customers. So you always want to double check with your client and say, does this feel right to you? And also, it's not always factual either. So you always want to be fact checking things if it does throw things out at you that that you just don't know anything about. Maybe do a Google search or something too, because it can definitely lie to you. But yeah, it's really cool to just like help you get into that mode. Like, I couldn't name a bunch of 70s bands. Actually, I probably could now because I've been listening to a lot of music with my husband's mom lately. But, like back in the day, like I couldn't name a bunch of like bands from the 70s. And so if your clients' customers are like people who grew up in the 70s, maybe they want to make 70s pop culture references. And as younger people, maybe we don't know that, but we can have Chat GPT help us with that. So like, that's just so cool to me that we can so much more easily gain an understanding of who these people are so that we can create content specifically for them and speak in a way that they will just find like attractive and relatable. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, I love that. And of course, bringing it back to the pop culture, I would have never thought when I first asked you that question, okay, can we find out pop culture references that this avatar can understand? But I think that's so, so good because I know, especially as a marketer myself, I want to know all those things. I want to know the really basic demographics and things like that. But when I'm actually getting into the nitty gritty of content creation, I want to know all of that good stuff that's going to make them feel inspired or they can relate to. And I want to know what things they don't relate to. What are the things that are maybe pain points that we need to like nicely touch on or different things like that. So I love that we can really use ChatGPT at so many stages of the content creation process. I think that's really powerful that there's not really any other tool out there on the market that is able to do all of those different things. So I think that is really, really awesome. I know with generating idea lists and generating content ideas, maybe even going deeper in these prompts around an ideal client avatar with ChatGPT can be overwhelming. As you mentioned, there's a lot of information that it can output, whether that information is 100% correct, as you touched on, or maybe it's just a ton. And it's like, okay, hold on. How do I organize all of my digital files here? I'm personally I'm an organized person, but I have digital clutter. Let's just put it at that. But Kinsey, I'd love to know, what advice do you have for someone to overcome the overwhelm of all of the ideas that it's going to throw your way?
Definitely. I know. Yeah. It's so funny. Earlier in the episode when I was like complaining about I was afraid of ChatGPT hindering our creativity and stuff, like as soon as I started using it, I was like, oh, okay, never mind. This is like this is a tool we can use to help us break through any creative blocks or writer's blocks that we come up on so that we can be more creative and like expansive more quickly and all this different stuff. And so, yeah, when you start using it, you're like, oh man, I know. And I'm definitely one of those people I'm like, oh, but I want to remember this and I want to put a pin in this and all this different stuff. And so I don't think that there's like a right or wrong way to organize it. And I do think that like everyone's brains work differently when it comes to organizing, and especially like the organizing tools that you use. I know that you're a ClickUp girl yourself. I like using Airtable for content creation just because I like all of the different views and I like how it's intuitive to me, the way that it works. It goes into the bucket view and it goes into the spreadsheet view and the calendar view and all that different stuff. I think that Trello is always a nice one for kind of the bucket organization system and stuff like that, or even just a freaking Google Doc. Like I said, like if you don't have time to come up with an organization system for this, then just use a freaking Google Doc to dump ideas into it. But probably just trying your best to be as organized as possible and realizing that if you don't snag every idea that it throws your way, like that's okay. Like whether it was a good idea and you just didn't keep a hold of it, that's okay. It'll come back around to you later. Don't worry. Don't have anxiety about that. And or like just being choosy about the content ideas that you use that are coming from ChatGPT, right? So I always say definitely run it through the filter of, does this make sense for my brand? Does this make sense to my ideal customers? And I always really like to ask as well, if it throws a content idea my way, I'll say, oh, what does Feel Good Social think about this? Like, does Feel Good Social kind of agree with this? Or do we disagree with this? Or what is our approach to this, right? And that's how I make sure that I'm like filtering through any content ideas that it's throwing at me and making sure that I'm using the content ideas in the way that Feel Good Social would approach it. And then also just like be gentle with yourself. Don't feel like you have to use it for all of the things. One thing at a time, even if you're just opening it up and using it for one thing a day or one thing a week, like that's cool. You don't have to use it for all the things. Give yourself permission to slowly practice and figure out how can this work in my workflow. If you've been doing business for years without Chat GPT, it doesn't have to completely be integrated into your business in like 2 days.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's so funny that I feel like a lot of people expect that from Chat GPT, maybe just the nature of how quick it does work. But then it's always that like really instant letdown of, oh, that's not exactly what I needed. But I think that's the beauty of Chat GPT is that it's super trainable, if you will. I feel like a lot of people use that word, Kinsey, like they're training Chat GPT. Is there any way that you can train Chat GPT? I feel like I see it so much on TikTok and YouTube from people talking about it, but is there a way to train it? Should you? Or what should we do? Because I loved your point about seeing those questions about you and your brand, but I just wanted to get your perspective on training Chat GPT, if that's a thing.
Oh, definitely, definitely. And I will just start out this by saying these softwares are all changing like so quickly every day, week, month, year. Like it's going to look super different and it's only going to get better and better and better, hopefully, cross your fingers. But, so like this could change over time. But as of right now, there's a few things we can do specifically for Chat GPT to quote unquote, like train it for our brand. There is the settings, like guidelines or settings that you can set for all of your chats. And basically it's like telling it your brand's information, right? Tell me about you. What do you care about? Why are you using ChatGPT? And then there's like a second box and it says, tell us how you want us to respond. Do you want us to be serious? Do you want us to be more like fun and just like casual, different things? So there is a way that you can just train every chat conversation just automatically to understand certain things about you and your business and the tone of voice that you want to use in your writing and that you want ChatGPT to use as it responds to you, right? So there is like that overarching setting thing, which is awesome now because we used to have to go into every chat and like give that information initially because every chat window is different, right? So ChatGPT, if you open up a new chat window, it only knows like what it knows within that chat. Unless you're using like this overarching setting thing where you tell it about your business now and stuff, right? But it will remember your conversation within that chat window and the topics that you're talking about. It will remember like the instructions that you give it, such as for tone of voice or like who your brand is and anything like that. But it won't cross over between different chats. So that's always something to remember. So within one chat window, you can give it specific instructions and give it feedback based on the responses it's giving you. So you can ask it to expand more on this thing or rewrite this thing, but be more dry and less like dorky. You can say, I wasn't looking for this as much in that last response as I'm looking for something like this. So I always like to think of it as like an assistant and like literally think of it as a human, like some sort of like someone you're having a conversation with and you're just like collaborating together on this idea, whatever you're trying to get out of ChatGPT. It's a collaborative process. You can't expect it to give you like the perfect answer the first time, right? You have to go back and forth. You have to give it feedback on what it last responded to you and then go back and forth a few times before you get the correct responses. But yeah, it does for the most part remember everything within one single chat window. However, I will say that I think once you get far enough down in the conversation, it can tend to forget. So sometimes you have to remind it of things. Like, yeah, it's just funny to see how everyone is talking about it online and stuff and all of these different insights that people are having and stuff. But I think the best thing you can do is remember that it's a collaborative process. It only knows what you're telling it. And so the more feedback you can get, the more back and forth you can do with it, the better you're going to allow it to hone in on what you want from it.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I love the idea of the like overarching settings for giving that info, but also just keeping in mind that every chat window is different. And I love that thing that it's collaborative. I think that's the best way to probably put ChatGPT and how that really like integrates into our content planning process, which I think is really exciting. Kinsey, I'd love to know, where do you see the future of AI?
Oh man, I know. I asked this question on my podcast too, and I'm like, that's so huge. But I think that the future of AI is literally that it's happening. And we can somewhat predict it and we can't really predict it at the same time. It's just all we know is that it's happening. It's snowballing. It's always going to get bigger and better and more innovative. And also there's this fear that it could be used for quote unquote evil or like scary things, or robots are going to take over the world, like all that stuff, which is a little melodramatic, but it's a concern. And so the thing is, we don't really know where the future of AI is going to take us. And you can either lean into the fear of it or you can lean into the excitement of it. And I tend to lean into exciting things as an Enneagram 7 myself. But I think that the most important thing to remember is the best thing you can do is accept that it's happening and slowly start to dabble your toes in it now. Learn a little bit more about it. Learn a little bit how you feel about it. Learn a little bit about what's happening with it so that it's not super, super overwhelming for you as it just continues to snowball into the future. And then also, hopefully, you can hone your own opinions about it and be involved in shaping it, right? And be involved in conversations about it, in being able to talk about it and share your opinion, grow a community around how you feel about it and how we should be using it and all of that different stuff. Because that's the best way I think that we can affect the future. If we just like go hide under a rock, okay, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. But if we can have more people understanding it and using it authentically and using it in a way that feels good to us and in a way that aligns with our values and stuff, then that community will grow instead of like the evildoers or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I think that's such a great outlook on the future of AI and just how we can all be a part of the process. We're all probably going to be using it as soon as we're listening to this episode. I know I'm dying to go in and just check out those settings to add my brand to the whole Chat GPT. But I really love that. And I'm really excited too for the future of AI and just to also be a part of that conversation. Well, Kinsey, thank you so much for coming on the show and talking all things AI. I really enjoyed just geeking out over this really awesome thing in the online business world. Where can our listeners find out more about you and your business and your podcasts?
Yes, thank you so much for bringing me on here, Jess. I could geek out with you all day about this stuff, girl, but I would love to connect with anyone who wants to connect with me. I have 2 Instagrams, at feelgoodsocial for more of the branding, marketing, website side of things, and then at Authentic AI for entrepreneurs for the feel good approach to AI technology. And there we'll just be sharing all of the different things that we're learning as we go along in the journey. My websites are feelgoodsocial.com or authentic AI for entrepreneurs.com, and the podcast Feel Good Social or Authentic AI for Entrepreneurs. Search for them on whatever podcast platform you listen to, and I'd love to connect with you on those as well. And yeah, and I am currently creating a new kind of guide for helping you really hone your brand's kind of persona that you can share with Chat GPT so that hopefully it can give you better results and in a tone of voice that works for your brand without having to go through the like all more drama of trying to figure this out and the frustration of that, right? So hopefully by the time this episode comes out, that'll be available for us, but it's basically taking you through with different examples of things that you could share with ChatGPT that might help you hone your brand's personality, tone of voice, like what references it can use, like what it should talk about and all of that different stuff. Because I think that that's definitely one of the biggest hurdles to like starting to use ChatGPT. And also like having to ask the question, like, who the heck is my brand? Sometimes that's like hard to describe in a way that ChatGPT will understand. So that'll be available at Authentic AI for Entrepreneurs, hopefully by the time this episode comes out.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Kinsey. And we will have all of Kinsey's links to her podcasts, her websites, her social media channels. And of course, if we have that guide available for you all, we will certainly link that in the show notes of this episode as well. Thank you again, Kinsey, for coming on the show and just sharing so much valuable knowledge around AI and how we can use it in our content creation process. And thank you to all of you for listening every single week on #Managed. We'll be back next week with another guest and another episode.
How great was that conversation, you guys? I knew you would love this just as much as I did, and I hope that you gleaned some helpful insights into how you can start using AI in your content creation process. Once again, if you enjoyed this show, make sure that you do share it with a fellow podcast listener who could also use to hear it. And let's connect over on Instagram. I am at FeelGoodSocial or at Authentic AI for Entrepreneurs. Either one of those, you can reach me. Send me me a message. Let me know that you came from the podcast, and I will be sure to give you a follow back and just continue spreading you some love over there. All right, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and I will catch you next time I catch you.